Welcome back. I'm going to take us a little bit further now into the book of Tobit by looking at three of the themes. Obviously, I cannot look at all of them with you, but I'll look at three of them. And the first one is the notion of identity and assimilation. So you may have, and I'm guessing that you did, come up with some wonderful pros, things that are gained from American culture becoming more diverse. The situation that Tobit's in is a bit different from that, in that conformity to the culture, finding a way to understand and appreciate Greek culture meant you had to become Greek. It meant losing your identity. And if you're looking for a parallel here, I came across in my research a strange and interesting YouTube video of a Black non-denominational church. And the preacher was talking about how the book of Tobit is a book about one dominating culture trying to force its identity on the conquered people, and that Tobit lets us know that we should stand up and say no to that. Tobit refuses to take on the identity he is being given by the dominating culture. And the preacher said, this is just like the Black experience in America. Whites have forced an identity on Blacks for centuries, and it's time for us to stand up and resist that and insist that we're going to take on the identity that we have ourselves. We are not going to let you impose an identity on us. So conformity to culture really here is a tool of oppression. And so that message comes across loudly in the text. We see Tobit faithfully following the Torah even before the Assyrian exile. Remember, he lived in the northern kingdom, and when the two kingdoms broke apart, the northern kingdom, basically the people there thumbed their nose at the establishment of the religion in the temple in Jerusalem. They said, this is just a way that you oppress us. So we're going to worship wherever we want. We're going to pick any hilltop and set up our own altar and worship there. And that's what they do, but not Tobit. He still makes his journeys to Jerusalem, worships there, tithes properly. He's fulfills the Torah to the T. And he continues to do so when he's in Nineveh. He buries the dead, which is part of what Jews were expected to do, even though he risks his life in doing that and has to flee for a while. He continues to perform ritual purity. So we see him washing his hands and staying outside because that's part of what you needed to do if you've touched dead bodies. And the poor man, that's why he's sleeping outside when the sparrows poop on his eyes. It's because he's following the law. He's very much into almsgiving. One of the commentators that I read pointed out that Tobit is an orphan, as you may recall. And so he was a needy person. And the Torah, one of the beautiful things in my mind is that as it emphasizes over and over again that we must care for those who are marginalized, it always reminds us that we must care for the marginalized because we know what it's like to be marginalized and to be in that tough situation. And Tobit lives that out. His grandmother Deborah teaches him the Torah, and that caught his attention. So here he is as an adult taking care of the poor because he knows what it's like to be poor. He continues to care about endogamy and that command that comes across clearly in the Hebrew scriptures. He even cranks it up a notch, and instead of just marrying another Jew, you need to marry someone within your own tribe. And the message of the book is God agrees, God affirms his choice by rewarding him and his descendants. So again, taking that message and bringing it into our own time, we live in a time where we are becoming less and less Christian. And so we need to think about the commission that Jesus left us. Even if we are not active members of a church, Jesus set up a church. He commissioned his followers to continue to spread the good news and to serve throughout the world, and he would be with them until the end of time because there's nobody to continue this message unless somebody does it, and you need to do that in a conscious, committed, organized kind of way. So we face that same thing today, right? So if we become a more diverse culture, how is it that we end up preserving the message of the church, the behaviors of the church, how Christians are expected to act, right? They'll know we're Christians by our love. Will they, how are we going to pass this along? So I think it's a great idea to spend a little time thinking about two sides of this issue. One of them is thinking about what it is that the church says is essential, uh, that needs the behaviors that need to be passed on so that the church continues to exist into the next generations. And then I'd like you also then to think about, so what are the things that you're doing? Have you, which of those essential behaviors do you carry out in order to pass on to the next generation the faith?